Coming up.
If Jessica's out there right now, if she sees this photo and says, oh my gosh, that's me, she might not even know that she's missing.
For Vault Studios, I'm Reed Redmond. You're listening to The Daily Crime. On June 6th, 1986, Deborah Gutierrez awoke to find her 4-year-old daughter was missing from her bedroom.
35 years ago today, Jessica Gutierrez of Lexington went missing. Her mother says she woke up to find Jessica's bed empty.
35 years later, investigators are still trying to figure out what happened to Jessica Gutierrez.
My immediate impression was that it's a good case. It's a solvable case.
Emily Carell, reporter with WLTX in Columbia, South Carolina. You recently covered the 35-year anniversary of the disappearance of a little girl named Jessica Gutierrez. Take us back to the night she went missing in the spring of 1986. What happened?
Yeah, so, the night she went missing, she lived out in Lexington on a pretty known road around here. It's called South Lake Drive. She went to bed, the whole family went to bed. She slept in a room with her older sister, actually. And, everyone went to bed as normal. And then the next morning, I was told, obviously 35 years ago, a long time ago, but the mother woke up and went to get her kids up, and Jessica was not in her bed. She thought maybe at first they were playing hide and seek or something silly like that. And no, she was nowhere to be found. They did notice that a window in the bedroom was kind of broken, like it had been opened. And so they all started looking around. The family started looking around. They called friends, they called family, and then eventually called the police. And they did a whole lot of searching. They actually brought in ATVs and helicopters, and they searched the entire area and never found her, never found any trace of her.
One of the big pieces of evidence here is, as you mentioned, that broken window. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I actually have the original incident report in front of me, and I can read you what it says. So the mother noticed the screen in the room had been torn off the frame. She asked the other children, where Jessica was, and they replied that she wasn't in the room. So I think what's most interesting to me here is that there was someone else in the room with her. And later on, reports said that the little girl, and I can't think of how old the sister was off the top of my head here, but said that she told her mom, someone came and took Jessica, a man in a magic hat. So that I'm assuming she told her she went through that broken screen door or screen window, but she was just too little to help anymore.
All the evidence that we have points to the early morning hours. Someone entered the residence through a broken window, ended up taking the child from her bed and exiting out the front door. And the child has not been seen since.
It seems that unlike cases where a child is left unattended or sneaks off at the park or at a store or something like that, that this was not a crime of opportunity in that sense, that it seems like Jessica's kidnapper chose to target this home. Are there any conclusions that investigators have been able to draw from that as far as you know?
There over 35 years, obviously they explore a whole lot of leads. A whole lot of people have been on this case. There's actually the investigator that is over it now. He has been on this case for the past 15 years, and he has made it. He doesn't even work in investigations anymore, and he wants to see this case through. Obviously there's been different suspects and different assumptions about what has happened. The family, as well as, a lot of people in the community believe they know what happened. At this point, it's a matter of getting all the evidence together and being able to prosecute this person. From what I've heard, as far as being a part of a Find Jessica Facebook group and just like rumors. So this isn't, absolutely true or not, but they are almost certain they know who did this, and they believe that it was someone that was known to the family. It's just a matter of putting it together. And something else that I was told when I was chatting with the investigator and then some people around this case, there was a fingerprint found on that window, the window where the screen was taken off. They found a fingerprint, and it didn't match anyone in the system at the time, but years later it did match someone. And it was just the fact of getting everything, because a case you can arrest someone, obviously, but then will you have enough information to prosecute? So I think that is what the issue is now. I asked the investigator straight on, do you think this case will be solved? And he said yes.
And I'll point out, because I'm sure everybody listening is asking, that investigators have not identified the person that fingerprint lifted from the window belongs to. But I'll ask, have investigators publicly named any suspects over the years?
Not to my knowledge.
And I want to talk a little bit more about your interview with that sergeant that you mentioned, Sergeant David Pritchard. There's something he said, and it was kind of cryptic or vague, which, as you know, is not untypical for someone in law enforcement talking about an active investigation. But he said there are things that they'd been working through for years that would go a long ways to help solve the case.
But there was just some things that we had to try to work through. And believe it or not, we've been trying to work through those things for the last 15 years.
Did he ever indicate what specifically those things might be that they're working through?
So you mentioned he was a bit vague. He was definitely vague with us too, just because I believe that he thinks that this case will be able to be solved and he doesn't want to compromise that. One thing he definitely mentioned is that, in 1986, we did not have the same technology that we have now. And he, again, would not name anything specific because I'm assuming it directly relates to the investigation. But he said that technology now has seriously helped them in this case.
When it comes to true crime podcasts, Generation Y is a pioneer. If you're obsessed with tales of murder and mayhem, this is the one show you need to be listening to. Hosts Erin and Justin discuss unsolved cases from all angles. They break down theories, dive deep into forensic evidence, and share their shocking opinions. Often, cold cases they bring to light finally find resolution. They dig deep, looking for answers on cases of missing spouses, mysterious murders, serial killers, and more. What sets the show apart? Well, they do extensive research and give details you won't hear elsewhere. Their attention to detail while examining these crimes is what's kept Generation Y at the top of the true crime genre for so long. It's a podcast that surprises and will change the way you think about true crime. Listen to the Generation Y podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or you can listen ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app. Wondery. Feel the story.
Just this year, as we marked the 35th anniversary of Jessica's disappearance, the Lexington Sheriff's Office put out a video.
On June 6th of 1986, the mother wakes up that morning and notices that her 4-year-old daughter is missing.
And it shares Jessica's story, and there are really emotional clips of her mother talking about the case.
You just all of a sudden, put your kids to bed and wake up one morning and one of them's gone. You don't understand it. And like I said, everything's happening like a whirlwind. You don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. And then you start searching.
Tell me a little bit more about this video and other efforts from the Sheriff's Office in recent years to try to bring in new tips.
Right. So the mother in the past has been a little frustrated with how it's handled. Obviously, her daughter, was never brought home. So that's very frustrating for her. It's very sad. It's very heartbreaking. Over the years, as you can imagine, different investigators have been put on this case. It's gone back and forth. I believe there's been a number of sheriffs at the Lexington County Sheriff's Office since this case first got brought to their attention. So there's definitely been some flip-flop and pulling around and frustration for the family as far as finding who did this to Jessica, where Jessica is even. But Sergeant David Pritchard, when he was put on this case 15 years ago, he intended to stop all of that pulling around. And that is part of why, I mentioned he's not even an investigator anymore. He works in the training department, but he has kept this case and he has kept it, on his desk and working it for this family. So I think definitely in the last 15 years, they've had some more consistency, but definitely putting that video out, one thing he mentioned to us was there can't be any harm in it. Maybe someone will remember something just minuscule, something small. Maybe they were driving down the road that night. Maybe they remember the house that was there.
What we're hoping is that with the 35th anniversary and the coverage that we're getting is that people will see this and it may spark something in their past that they remember that, again, they may have discounted years ago, but now they think, hey, this may have something to do with it. So we're really hoping that it can generate some new and some fresh leads for us.
They just hope that getting her story out and keeping it out and helping people remember will at some point let them know what happened to Jessica.
It may be the piece that we're looking for that can solve the puzzle that we need. So if anybody has any information, please call, please let us know.
You mentioned that Sergeant Pritchard started working on this case 15 years ago, and the case itself is now over 35 years old. Did he talk at all about what the day-to-day work on a case that is so old and that has had so many different people look at it looks like at this point?
Not specifically. I can kind of talk about how, a lot of people would consider this a cold case because of how old it is. But to him, he didn't really consider it that because this case has never actually been closed. So I definitely think, you mentioned in our interview with him, he says there are things that we thought we could tie up 15 years ago. And, it's just taken us this long. I can imagine it's frustrating. It's time consuming. But what really amazed me about him is how just diligent he is and how he 100% believes that he will solve this case, even after all these years.
You mentioned that there is a Facebook group of people that are discussing this case. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. So there is a Facebook page. It's called Justice for Jesse Gutierrez. They spell Jesse, Jesse. It is basically a page for people to send their well wishes, their thoughts, their prayers. And Jesse's mom actually posts a lot in this group. She talks about her concerns. She talks about her wishes. I mentioned a lot of people think they know who did it, and they do post about that in here. It's basically a very active page, even after 35 years, to continue to try and bring Jessica home.
Also this year, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released age-progressed photos of Jessica, and what's striking is that they're photos of an adult. Jessica would be in her late 30s now, and it makes you pause and realize just how much time has passed since she went missing.
Absolutely. And, if you don't mind me sharing that, a lot of times when I do stories like this, I kind of have to cut off the emotional side and look at it as helping get the story out. But I tell you, when they brought out that picture, the age progressed picture, my heart kind of skipped a beat a little bit because it's like, oh my goodness, she couldn't even know that maybe she was kidnapped at a young age. She could be, this is what she would look like. This is what she does look like. It was, that part was kind of surreal. But anyways, back to your question. So I did ask the question during the interview, if Jessica's out there right now, if she sees this photo and says, oh my gosh, that's me, she might not even know that she's missing. I asked Sergeant Pritchard, what does he want? What would he want her to know? And his response was, give us a call. We want to give your family closure. We want to help you. We just urge you to give us a call. And I thought that was super interesting because, sometimes she was 4 years old. She might not even know that she was kidnapped. And that's another reason why we like to get these stories out again, even after 35 years, because, she might be sitting in her living room watching the news and see that picture and say, oh my goodness, that's me,
right? 35 years is a long time, but as you've mentioned, this is an active investigation. And any of our listeners who are interested in learning more can check out Emily's reporting at WLTX.com. Emily Carell, thanks for sharing this story.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Daily Crime. We're here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of those episodes, make sure you are subscribed to or following the show right now. You can check out some of our other podcasts by visiting vaultstudios.com. That'll do it for this one. Until next time, for Vault Studios, I'm Reed Redmond.